This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Pollster Mark Penn had a good post on X. Just recounting, a couple days worth of headlines about the military operation in Iran. These are headlines, actual headlines, DC press corps. Iran regime doing well, in control. Doing well, really. I wonder what would constitute doing poorly. Lost half our Navy, and we've been reduced to about 15 to 20% capacity to retaliate. Things are going great. We lost our supreme leader and most of our senior leadership in the first hours of the military operation. Couldn't be better. In total control. We got a new supreme leader whose body double is a cardboard cutout. Iran regime doing well, in control. Another, Trump under pressure to end war. From who? Dick Blumenthal? Another, Khamenei's son just as tough as father. Mark Penn opines, one headline after another essentially featuring Iranian propaganda as the news. Well, when the D.C. press corps is rooting for the Iranians, you would expect them to act just as they do when they're rooting for the neo-Marxist party, which is every single day. The reality is slightly different. Oh, but I mean, this is in keeping, by the way, before I get to General Kane's update yesterday. CNN had to apologize for the headline. I mean, this is not Iran, but it's the same sort of thing. Their headline regarding the attempted Islamist terrorist attack outside Gracie Mansion this past Saturday. You still want to defund police? Now the two officers who intervened are rightly being hailed as heroes. I thought they're just members of a systemically racist organization. Yeah. A post, CNN's apology, a post regarding the two individuals arrested for throwing homemade bombs outside the New York City mayor's Zohran Mamdani's home failed to reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standards we require for all of our reporting. Now you have to apologize for saying you have editorial standards. The post in question that was deleted because it didn't meet these fictional editorial standards that CNN alleges. Two Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would be drastically changed as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zohran Mamdani's home. The attack, it makes it sound like the attack happened to them. And they were just interested in, taking advantage of the weather. And then all of a sudden they get arrested for throwing bombs. I love the passive voice to minimize. They went to New York City for the purpose of trying to kill dozens of people protesting outside Gracie Mansion. That's what actually happened. Oh, and then, by the way, we find that there were more bombs that they had made back at a staging area in Pennsylvania, authorities found. But this is consistent with Western press. The Economist. Khamenei knew he was personally in the great Satan's sights. This did not daunt him. That's The Economist. This did not daunt him. He felt always that he had divine right on his side. I love when The Economist uses the Iranian Islamist characterization of America in reference to America. That's not a tell. And of course, we talked about this with Leo Leibowitz too the other week. the sanitizing of the Ayatollah by the Washington Post and the New York Times, much like they sanitized, well, New York Times in particular, Hitler as a Bavarian gentleman who enjoyed long walks in the mountains with his dogs in the 30s, which is 100% true. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, hardline cleric who made Iran a regional power, dies at 86. That was that line. The New York Times obit. Oh, God. Oh, it's good stuff. Mm-hmm. Iranian regime doing well, in control. That's not what Dan Kane, General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has to say.
Our strikes mean we've made significant progress in reducing the number of missile and drone attacks out of Iran. Ballistic missile attacks continue to trend downward, 90% from where they've started, and one-way attack drones have decreased 83% since the beginning of the operation. A testament to our air defenders and our air defense systems, and as I said, our partners in the region continue to do great work as well.
He also said there is work to do, and this is where they're going to be doing it.
We're making substantial progress towards destroying the Navy. In the first 10 days of the conflict, we're more than 50 Iranian naval ships into the campaign using a combination of artillery, fighters, bombers, and sea-launched missiles. As Admiral Cooper noted last Thursday, we struck and sank an Iranian drone carrier ship, and U.S. CENTCOM continues today to hunt and strike mine-laying vessels and mine storage facilities. This work will continue. Third, against our objectives, we've begun to target Iran's military and industrial complex, again, focusing on centers of gravity to get upstream of the shooters out in the field in order to deny them the ability to continue to generate those one-way attack drones.
And because this is where things are at, if you take General Kane at his word, which I'm inclined to do, it means that calls to declare victory and call it a day from senators like Josh Hawley are a bit premature, in my view. Hawley on Waters last night.
Well, I think that he's achieved his objectives the way that he's laid them out. And you just put it beautifully, Jesse. I mean, what is there really that's left to do that we haven't already done? I mean, we have demonstrated to the world and anybody who's watching, by the way, that we have overwhelming military superiority and we know how to use it. We have totally destroyed forever their nuclear program. We have destroyed their ballistic missiles. We have destroyed their Navy. I mean, this has been a total success in whatever it's been, 11 days. And I thought the president's remarks last night that he could declare victory today and it would be a 100% victory. I think it's true. I think we ought to say to our heroes, thank you for a job well done. This has been absolutely amazing. It's been astounding. It's been historic. And now it's time to declare victory.
Yeah, it could be all those adjectives, but it long-lasting. I know he said the nuclear program has been destroyed forever and ever, amen, but that's not true. That's not true. And the fact that's not true is a problem because that's fundamental to the mission. Not forever and ever, but at minimum such that you impede their ability to have a significant ballistic missiles program, drone production capability, and a quick restart to their nuclearization, their nuclearization program for the purposes of nuclear weapons. Okay. For more on all this, pleased to be joined by Peter Berkowitz, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution, former Director of Policy Planning at the U.S. State Department, and author of Explaining Israel, the Jewish State, the Middle East, and America. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Thanks.
A bit premature on Josh Hawley's part, and the other part, people who are a little. Let's go out on top, boys. We showed them who we are. Let's make sure that no mistakes are made, and let's call it victory and call it a day.
You're right, of course, that Hawley's adjectives are correct. Amazing accomplishments in the first week and a half of this operation, but many accomplishments left to be achieved. Remember, Israel today Several times a day, Israelis are forced to enter shelters because of launches of ballistic missiles from Iran. All the ballistic missiles, all the launchers, all the missile production sites haven't yet been destroyed. President Trump was very clear. Sink their Navy and their nuclear program, destroy their missiles, missile launchers, missile factories, destroy IRGC bases, Basij bases. There's still physical infrastructure left to destroy. So the war is not yet over.
And the alignment and non-alignment, the United States and Israel. This was an issue yesterday at the briefing that Hegseth and General Kane offered when the topic of regime change came up, and the idea that if we don't want the Ayatollah's kid to be the supreme leader there, we'd like somebody else. And Hegseth was quick to basically say, look, essentially that may be more Israel's stated objective than our stated objective. And I wanted to get your comment on that.
There have been some divergencies in remarks over the last 10 or 11 days, which one would expect. But in their initial statements on February 28th, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump were at one. Both indicated that we hope, as a result of our destruction of their military capabilities, to create conditions for regime change. But it is not our military objective. The Israeli hope, as I understand it, is through the pounding of the infrastructure to give the Iranian people the opportunity to change the regime. But I think the United States has remained consistent. Beyond destroying military capabilities, we are not introducing soldiers, which is what would be necessary, not only to cause the regime to collapse, but to install people we prefer.
What about the prospect that if you can't get to what is believed to be a uranium enrichment site within Pickaxe Mountain, because it's protected by granite, as Trump observed the other day, that may require some sort of special forces operation, maybe U.S., maybe Israeli, maybe a combined operation, that you would have to put limited boots on the ground to try to get to that site in particular, and whether or not that would be worth it?
So I regard special operations forces as sort of in between. It's not an invasion. It's not an invasion. It's not an effort to occupy territory. You put extremely well-trained troops in. They perform a specific mission, and they leave. Technically, it's boots on the ground, but it's not what most people mean when they hear boots on the ground. They imagine tens of thousands of soldiers putting up tents, creating bases, and staying there.
The nuclearization program more generally, what is your sense of what we, meaning the civilian public, know about this versus what the U.S. and Israel know in terms of what's required to confidently say there will not be an ability to restart in the near term after this campaign is over?
Well, some of the language is exaggerated. For example, Senator Hawley's statement that the program is destroyed forever. We've known for a long time that the most we could really hope was to set the program back a few years. Why? You could destroy the entire infrastructure, but you would still have dispersed throughout Iranian society a know-how of how to reconstitute a program. Now, that requires a lot of concrete, a lot of building, a lot of energy. It would be highly visible. You could keep destroying it, but without destroying the entire intellectual class, you can't guarantee that a nuclear program will not arise. That said, my impression is, from what's been made publicly available, that the United States and Israel continue to pound away at the infrastructure they have, and are doing as much as an Air Force can do to end this nuclear program.
And the other matter of concern, of course, is ensuring the integrity of shipping lanes. You had some of those mine placement ships destroyed yesterday.
Yes.
Although at the same time, you had the Energy Secretary have to walk back in something he said on the Sunday talk shows with respect to tankers getting through, being escorted by American ships, which is not happening, at least not yet. And so that other issue, which was sort of addressed by General Kane, not directly though, that what will be required to clear those shipping lanes, and then also to ensure that commerce can travel through those areas without incident on a go-forward basis.
Yes, this was always a risk. Mines, the variety of mines that Iran has at the end of the day are low-tech and cheap, and also always represented a threat. That said, the United States is in a very different place than it was decades ago in the 1970s during the oil spike following the Yom Kippur War. Why? We have two important pipelines, one from the Emirates and one from Saudi Arabia, which extend oil to the world. And second, we have the United States, which has emerged as a top producer of oil and natural gas. So I strongly suspect that the Trump administration took these matters into account. So far, the United States and the world has avoided an oil crisis. And really, I think what we ought to say is it's astonishing, if Mark Penn were right, that Iran hasn't done more to block the shipments of oil.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, the way that it's being reported about how robust Iran remains. But that said, this larger issue, it may not be a stated military objective, but it sure would be nice if there was regime change in a way that was more friendly to both neighbors in the region and the Western world more generally. And I wonder, where you think the prospects of that are. I mean, Walter Russell Mead wrote earlier this week that the most likely scenario is that the U.S. Accomplishes basically what it stated it would do, but the regime remains in place.
I agree. There's a decent prospect for that, but we must emphasize the crucial point. A regime in place without its nuclear program, without its ballistic missiles, without its launches, without its capacity to produce missiles, without its IRGC bases, without its secret police offices, without its Navy, we left out, without its Air Force, is a regime that is much weaker. It would represent the achievement of the goals that President Trump laid out on February 29th and Prime Minister Netanyahu laid out, the primary goal being to greatly reduce the military threat that Iran presents to American bases, to American friends and partners. So I think it's very important to see, even if a frail, greatly weakened regime remains in place, the United States can achieve its stated military objectives and will.
Do you think two things I wonder if you think are overstated, in terms of downsides, and one in terms of upside, one in terms of downside. The upside being overstated, I'm asking. The relationship between the United States and the Abraham Accord countries, as well as those countries' relationship with Israel, that this military operation has brought those parties even closer together and isolated Iran even more so. Is that something, that's something that's been stated. It seems logical. It seems like people, other Arab states that were attacked by Iran didn't appreciate that, and Iran apologized and said, I'm not going to attack you anymore. I don't know how far that apology goes. So it seems like logical that that's the case, but maybe that is overly simplified.
I don't think it's overly simplified, although I would add a factor. No doubt that our moderate Gulf Arab Sunni partners were worried about this war, but there's no doubt that they regard Iran as an adversary, as a threat. They regard themselves in Iran's crosshairs, and I think Iran made a big blunder in attacking Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, because if those countries had any doubt which side they were on, the Iranians, who had lost 40 of their senior security people, removed that doubt by striking them. So if anything, I think the war has so far consolidated America's partnership with the moderate Gulf Arab monarchs.
Now, something I'm asking again, overstated as a threat. You know, the argument goes, as it did during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, we attack, we just create another generation of Islamist terrorists, and you can't kill your way out of the problem. And so this attack is spawned an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Norway, an attack on the U.S. consulate in Toronto, a Senegalese terrorist attack in Austin, Texas, mass shooter. And we're going to see more of that as a result of this, you know, perceived attack on the Arab world.
I don't think that's right. I don't think there's great empirical evidence for it. We were told that there would be rising up in the streets in 1991 and 2003. There were not. Moreover, you cannot allow your vindication of your national security interests to be hostage to terrorists around the world. And while you may not be able to change regimes by killing people, the critics' offering is not an accurate characterization of our military efforts. Our military efforts are aimed at physical infrastructure, boats, missiles, bases, nuclear development installations. Those you can destroy from the air. There you can succeed. And all responsible accounts, beginning with Kane, suggest that we're making great progress in achieving those important goals.
Peter Berkowitz, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution, former Director of Policy Planning at the State Department, and author of Explaining Israel, the Jewish State, the Middle East, and America. Peter Berkowitz, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
I'm Casey Klebeck, and I'm running for the United States Senate. Our country faces serious challenges: rising taxes, rising costs of food, housing,